What's up guys, this is Coach Donny with ElevateYourself.org. In this video, I'll be giving an overview of all the shoes I've tried in 2020. I tested a total of 7 different shoes for volleyball, which is the most that I've tested in a single year. I'll be ranking the shoes from my least favorite to my most favorite shoe. If you want to buy your own volleyball shoes, make sure you shop at my favorite online volleyball store, All Volleyball. They also sell volleyballs, jerseys, training equipment, and more. Use my discount code below to get 5% off your entire purchase. Also, don't forget that today is the last day you can get 15% off the Pride Bold tee and long sleeve at the Elevate Apparel store. Use the discount code in the description box. Before I go into talking about every shoe, I just want to put it out there that I have wide feet, which affects my comfort level with each shoe. So what might feel tight to me may not feel tight for you. Starting off with number 7 is the Adidas men's Crazyflight volleyball shoe. Adidas has definitely got their design game on point. This looks a little bit more modern and futuristic. I really like how you have this translucent layer as well as this see-through color beneath that. The one thing I did not like about the material is this upper feels like it's made of tarp. I remember feeling pretty restricted in the shoe because the plastic not only goes up a little bit here from the sole, but it keeps going up all the way around here on the outside edge. And when you're moving laterally, or especially on the last step of your jump, and your foot's kind of punching this way, you actually want your shoe to give a little bit at the bottom to help decelerate it. But if it's hitting something that's too firm, you feel all that force on the edge of your foot. You also have that same stiff plastic material more on the heel. Now this was not uncomfortable. I did like the amount of heel support where I just felt like my heel was not moving at all. The shock absorption was really good, and that's one thing I do like about the Boost technology. Here's the ironic thing about Boost technology. It's great for shock absorption, but actually not good for a bouncy jump. Whenever I wear shoes with Boost technology, I feel like I have to put more effort into jumping off, or I feel like I'm not really springing off the floor. The traction was very mediocre at best. If you're playing on a squeaky clean floor, you can have some decent traction. I don't know why these shoes aren't stickier or why they just don't make shoes with better traction. Especially if you're going to have this extra gum layer on the bottom. I think the shoe is also great for defensive players who want to stay closer to the ground because the sole is actually not that thick, so you get that ground feeling. So awesome design, but lowest on the performance, and that's why it's my least favorite shoe of 2020. Next we have our Adidas Dame 6. Now this is actually a basketball shoe, but I used it exclusively for volleyball, and I also used it for my dunk training outdoors, so I have a dual experience both indoor and outdoor with this shoe. This is one of the lightest basketball shoes that I've tried, which I like about that because I don't like shoes that make you feel heavy, but I completely understand why most basketball shoes need to have that extra reinforcement and durability because and agility demands are much higher in basketball than they are in volleyball. This shoe actually felt pretty spacious inside and is really great for people with large, wide feet like mine. But in my opinion, it was actually a little too open and too spacious. I prefer shoes that are more secure toward the foot so you can kind of feel the upper hugging the foot, but not so tight that it's cutting off the blood circulation. The lateral support was really great. So you see this little extra reinforced rubber on the outside as well as on the heel. Every time I needed to stop and go or land from my jumping, my foot felt very supported and lots of great shock absorption. And you see how the sole is actually pretty thick. Not only do you get tons of support all the way around, but you do get that bouncy feeling, that extra spring when you jump. I felt that both indoors and outdoors. Another cool feature is this rounded sole design. So you can kind of visualize the foot rolling at different angles on the floor. Now let's talk about the traction. Not very good at all. It was just as good as the Crazyflight unless you're playing on a brand new swept gym floor, which is very rare by the way. And you see even the tread patterns don't really have a lot of teeth, and it's actually kind of smooth on the bottom. This little heel thing was annoying too because it would rub against my Achilles. It has a lot of padding up here which felt really great on the ankle, but very little padding over here. So I did feel more impact on the forefoot and not so much on the rear foot here. Even though outdoor basketball courts are even dustier than indoors, for some reason on the concrete with dust, tons of squeaky sounds, and really great traction to change direction and land. But I rank this at number 6 because not very comfortable in the forefoot, very poor traction on indoors, and a little too spacious and thin in some areas because I like that snug feel. Coming in at number 5, we have the Adidas Dame 7. This is essentially a slightly upgraded version of the Dame 6, and I was a little disappointed because I thought there was going to be a much bigger change from the Dame 6 to Dame 7. Overall, it is a slightly heavier shoe, at least it feels heavier. They did make an improvement on the heel, so it's nice and soft and not this random flap that's just going to irritate the Achilles. We got that same curved design of the sole, which is great for multi-directional stop and go movements and jumping. Now they did add some extra padding on the forefoot and extra padding on the upper, which was nice. That's something that was lacking in the Dame 6. Also, the upper just is a little bit more protective. The overall feel of the Dame 7 was that it was a little too stiff for my preference. However, I did rank this above the Dame 6 because you did get this extra comfort on the forefoot as well as the upper. You got the same bouncy and springy sensation as the Dame 6. They did not improve the traction. The pattern might have changed, but it still slipped on gym floors that were not super squeaky clean. But just like the Dame 6s, for outdoor use, this was actually really good. Coming in at number 4, the Adidas Stabil shoe. This thing is a beauty. I wanted so badly for this shoe to feel great and to perform great because this is the coolest looking shoe that I've seen in a couple years. Unfortunately, because I have wide feet, this precluded me from feeling comfortable because this is a shoe that I felt the most squeeze on the edges. Even though the upper is pretty flexible and is made of this thick, flexible mesh material, they've reinforced a lot of the shoe with these random plastic parts that really restrict the movement of the foot. I do like the concept where the upper and the tongue is one piece, just to give this a seamless feel so you don't feel that tongue rubbing around and sliding on the top of your foot. We also have an extra reinforced heel, which is also pretty nice. The ankle felt pretty comfortable. They have this extra padding all around at the top. The shock absorption is not good with this shoe, probably because the sole is actually pretty thin even for a volleyball shoe. And they have this extra stiff rubber on the bottom that goes on top of the boost foam. And you heard me talk about earlier in this video that boost technology is actually great for shock absorption, but they don't really get to take advantage of that because it's encased in this stiff rubber here. I definitely felt quick and springy off the floor because the sole is so responsive, but because the sole is stiffer, I did not feel a lot of support on landing. I wanted these shoes to feel so good, but I can't wear them because my feet are too wide and just the nature of my position. But I might just hang this on the wall because it just looks so cool. Coming in at number 3, the Nike Hyper Ace volleyball shoe. This is a volleyball specific shoe and one of the original volleyball shoes that Nike made in addition to the Nike Air Zoom Hyper Attack. Here we have our Nike Zoom technology, which is one of my favorite shoe technologies going all the way back to the Kobe 6s. The first thing I noticed when I wore the shoe was how thick the inside was. You see how thick the padding is on the ankle and the side of the foot, but then when it gets to the upper, it actually is super soft and flexible. So this was a great combination of feeling supported and snug, but flexible enough so your foot can move around and not feel restricted. Now this does feel heavier than your typical volleyball shoe, which is not my preference because I like to feel light and agile. But the trade-off is that you get tons of support on this shoe. This is one of the most durable volleyball shoes that I've played with. The rubber all around is a little stiffer, so you're not going to get that extra spring, but it's also not going to take away from your jump like I felt like the Adidas Crazyflight shoes did with the boost technology in the sole. This felt great for wide feet. Somehow this shoe has really good traction. It's actually not that sticky on the bottom, but I think the way that the tread is designed, you see how it kind of looks like it has teeth. I've tried this in the dustiest gyms and actually keep this shoe in my trunk in case I am in a very dusty gym as a backup. and no matter what gym I played in, this shoe was able to hold its place. So if we're just looking for an all-around solid volleyball shoe, the Nike Hyper Ace is a good one to consider. Coming in at number 2, the Mizuno Wave Momentum. This shoe also looks like it's from the future, so we got such a modern and futuristic design with these cool geometric shapes. This one feels like a better version of the Nike Hyper Ace shoe that I just talked about. You get that same stiffness on the bottom, except you get an extra spring from the shoe. So whatever they did to the sole, you get an extra pop to the jump. You also get great shock absorption and traction from this design. And even though the sole is not very wide, you still get great lateral support. You want your foot to have some flexibility in this area. So my foot felt very supported, but not restricted, which is really important. And super flexible at the top, and lots of great padding around the ankle. Didn't feel any uncomfortable rubbing on my Achilles. And my favorite, very comfortable for wide feet. It's hard to find shoes that are great for both defensive and jumping, and this shoe definitely has a great combination of both. So this one came in at number 2 because it was an all-around solid shoe, but you get the bounce and the traction and the comfort and a sick-ass design. Finally, coming in at number 1, you probably guessed it by now, the Asics Sky Elite shoe. First, I gotta talk about this Tokyo print here, which I think is pretty cool because you get to see all these soccer shoes that have Brazil or Spain or Portugal on the shoes, and finally we have a volleyball shoe that you can represent a cool city or cool country. This shoe pretty much has all the benefits of all the shoes I talked about, which I'll review right now. What's pretty cool about this sole design is that even though it doesn't have that sticky gum, the traction is actually really good both on dusty and clean floors. So maybe it's the tread pattern, or maybe it's the type of rubber they use, but it felt great both on the heel and the forefoot. You also get that extra spring that I talked about, that extra bounce from the sole, but also plenty of shock absorption. The shock absorption is actually even softer than the Mizuno Wave Momentum and the Nike Hyper Ace. Let's talk about the lateral support. You get a nice little blade here, and in general, the wider this blade, the better lateral support, and you get the benefit of having this flexible edge here so your foot can move around comfortably. And we have that nice curve on both sides so that your heel can roll comfortably and spring into any direction. Next, we got the flexibility. So we got this super comfortable mesh that is even softer than the Wave Momentum. So you get the flexibility of that, but also the comfort and breathability. Then we have this great support here. This is not as thick as the Hyper Ace and the Mizuno, but you still get that comfort around the ankle and the upper. So just a great balance of both comfort, protection, and support. It's a very well made shoe, which is why you're seeing me wear it in most of my volleyball practice session videos. The heel toe transition of the shoe is really great. You feel super smooth when you're jumping off the floor, and very responsive shoe when I'm trying to change direction on defense. I never thought I would go back to Asics volleyball because my experience about 10 years ago was not very good with their last volleyball shoe, but I'm glad that they finally made some improvements over the 10 years, and I hope they continue to innovate at Asics. I hope you guys enjoyed this video about my experience with all the volleyball shoes I tested in 2020. Let me know what your favorite volleyball shoe that you tried in the last 1 to 2 years in the comments below. Also, if you want to learn more about my experience with each shoe and videos of me playing in those shoes, you can watch each of those shoe review videos in more detail linked in the description box. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.